A new bill pending before the New York City Council would require employers to disclose salary ranges to an employee for their position. Is that a good idea? Let's talk about it. This is Nuance. I'm Mike Scala, an attorney and an MC, joined, of course, and as always, by Jay Carter, also known as Timid, the hip hop artist in the chair of BLM Tokyo. What's going on, Jay? You like this idea?
Yeah, I think transparency is necessary. I think it's good, so they're not playing games behind the scenes. You'll see
Right.
far too often, especially people who've been in a position for a long time, they'll be getting less than a new hire in that same position. And it's not fair.
Sure. Though I guess we do have to have a discussion right off the bat here about what fairness is, right? Because you do often hear about people working in companies and getting raises, maybe not a promotion, but a raise, right? And I think people come to expect every year or whatever it is, right, on a regular basis, they get a little bit more money. That doesn't necessarily mean that their job title is changing or even their job description, right?
Right.
So is it not fair to have different employees working in the same position but getting paid different amounts of money?
It could be, but I think that's what's behind this recent recommendation of job hopping every 2 or 3 years,
Mm,
because if you look at the money you're going to get from these small incremental raises, they're going to be far less
sure.
than if you were to jump to another company in the same position, because they're going to give you a higher wage from
Right.
jump. And so you're kind of cutting yourself short.
Right. It seems like when you are job hunting, you are negotiating around what the current job market is, right?
Right.
But if you're in a job, you could be in that job, like you said, for many years, and they're not updating your salary every year based on what the current job market is looking like. They're kind of using the baseline of when you started or what you were before the last time they gave you a raise, right? So like, it's like they're
Right.
kind of giving breadcrumbs, even if it's not really consistent with what the current economy even looks like.
Right, right. Because you're on whatever their pay raise track is, and it's
Right,
2% a year or something like that.
right,
You have to
right,
pardon me. I got a sore throat, and my I
right.
can hear it the way that I'm talking.
Yeah. Well, we'll try to keep it short. We'll keep it short and sweet this week so you can rest that voice.
Yeah, I've got 4 or 5 lessons to teach later.
Oh, man. All right. So you got
Yeah.
a full day ahead of you. So, all right. So we talked about how it may not be fair to have different employees getting different amounts of money. Now, to be clear, this bill wouldn't require everyone to be paid the same. It just is a matter of transparency, right? So it would require the employer to tell the employee, and they can make a request once a year under this, no more than that. But they can force the employer, if this passes, to tell the employee how much everyone else is making, not by name, but the range of salaries people get in that particular position, right?
Right. Yeah, it's just being transparent and giving that employee a tool that they can use to decide what they want to do. Of course, the
Yeah.
employer doesn't have to pay them more, but they
Right.
can look at that and say, "Hey, why am I getting this? I've been here this X amount of years," and put the power in the hands and be like, "Hey, maybe I need to go look elsewhere." You
You
know,
probably wouldn't want to be on the bottom, right? So if you're in a given job and it says the range of this job is between 55,000 and 75,000, and you're that 55,000, you probably would be upset, right? I'm at the very bottom range of this, especially if you have years in, there are other people in the company, maybe who came in after you or something like that, right? And they're in the same, like, whoa, how come I'm on the bottom of this? So do you think that's going to create some kind of effect where basically everyone who requests this and sees they're on the bottom is going to have a problem? It's going to cause more people to start leaving companies.
I think it's going to cause more people to start asking for raises,
Mm-hmm.
asking for explanations, and looking to jump ship, looking for other opportunities, which overall could be beneficial to them. They could
Could be.
stay in their job, but at the same time start looking for a position that's going to start them at a much higher wage, be relevant to their experience.
Could you imagine a question on a job application, right, that asks where do you fall on the range in your position, right? Like I can
Mm.
see companies saying we don't want to hire people who are at the bottom of their range because everyone knows what they where they are in the range now. You know what I mean? Are you typically in the top or the bottom of your range in your job?
Yeah, it'd be an interesting question. I mean, I don't think they would necessarily get true answers,
Right.
nor do I think they'd be entitled to them. But
Well, they can provide a report. Imagine. I mean, listen, people ask for so much documentation these days on everything. It's kind of crazy. It's
They
very
absolutely
invasive.
do it. They
Yeah.
absolutely do. I was filling out an application for a teaching position yesterday, and there was a question that really took me back because you have your voluntary disclosures at the end where they ask for like gender, race, or not gender, sex,
Hmm.
race, maybe pronouns, maybe a military service, veteran status, disability status.
Right.
And all of those, according to law, are not allowed to be required.
Was this in the U.S. or Japan?
US.
Oh, in the U.S. Okay.
Yeah, Japan, they don't care.
Yeah.
They'll ask you straight up. They'll tell you straight up, you can't get this job because you're too old for it.
Right.
Um, but so there was the question, what's your sex? What's your ethnicity? Or what's your
Mm.
race? What's your sex? And all of those had the option of prefer not to say.
Right. They can't deny you the job based on those factors. I didn't think that there was a law that they couldn't even ask.
Right, they can ask,
Right.
but they can't really require you to
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 answer.
disclose
You
it.
can say prefer not to say.
However, there was one question there that I'd never seen before that had no option but to disclose.
Okay.
And this question was, are you Latino or Hispanic?
Hmm. Interesting.
And it was either it
Yes or
was
no.
yeah, it was that. So there's no way to so you were disclosing one way or the
Had to
other.
answer it. Yeah.
And
I
I
guess
thought
you
of
could write
initially I was taken
what
aback
you
because I'm
want to
like,
answer or
this
just leave
sounds
it blank.
illegal.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, I mean, I guess you could just not fill it in a bubble there. You could leave it blank or write
No,
refuse.
you can't. It was a
Right. Oh, it's
requirement.
online, you mean? It was online.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
You had to
You
respond to
had to
that
answer it.
question. So you
Wow.
had to disclose one way or the other. And I'm thinking to myself, that isn't that, illegal?
But again, I don't think it's illegal to ask. It's illegal to deny you the job based on that status.
Right.
Yeah.
But to require you to answer one way or the other,
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of illegal because the other ones for like I said, for
All right.
sex, for things like that, you
Yeah.
never have them where they force you to answer it. You get
They
to
really
prefer
should
not to
ask
say.
it. Really, if they can't deny you the job based on that information, why do
Right.
they need that information in the first place? Right. It
Right.
reminds me of when you go for an apartment and they want to check your credit, even though they can't deny you based on credit. So then why are they even asking?
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And how are you going to prove that they didn't utilize that information in their
Right.
decision?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Right. If they don't need that information, it's not part of their decision. Why are they getting it?
Yeah. So that really took me aback. I just again
Yeah.
I just went ahead and discarded the application. I was like, this is because there's really no position. It's a teaching position. Why
Right.
do you need to know if I'm Latino, Hispanic to
Right.
teach these specific subjects?
Right.
Like, this
Yeah. I
wasn't
mean, even if
Latino history or Hispanic
yeah,
history.
and even if it was, you could know that you could have studied it in school. You could have had a master's
Right.
degree in that. Right. Doesn't matter. It shouldn't matter
Right.
what you are. So yeah. So they are asking for a lot of questions. So getting back to this though, right? Employers being required potentially to disclose salary ranges. Do you think that would be a good thing or a bad thing overall if more people started leaving their companies, right? You said it might result in higher rates of turnover. Maybe that's good for the individual employees if
Yeah.
they can find better jobs. Do you think that's a good or a bad thing overall if companies start losing employees a lot quicker?
Yeah, absolutely. I
I think
think it
it's a
is.
good thing.
Yeah, I think it is. The employees are getting railroaded already. So I think, yeah, they need that. And if they can leave the company, if they get that information and they leave the company, I think it's a good thing for them because they're not going to necessarily leave the company for less pay. They're going to leave the company for something that's more pay.
For the
And it's
employees, but what about for the employers? What about for the businesses and the economy?
I don't care as much about the employers in that regard. Um,
Well, if the employers are all suffering, they're going to have a harder time taking care of employees, aren't they? And hiring people. They
I
start
I don't think
losing
I
the
don't
businesses.
think I think it depends on what you're talking about, right? So um largely I think, and this is my opinion, largely when
Yeah.
we talk about these pay ranges for positions, we're talking about bigger companies. We're not talking about small
Well,
businesses necessarily. Like
maybe,
in
but this
general.
this would not require it only of bigger companies. This would
I
require,
know, I know. I'm just
and
saying,
you're saying you think it's a bigger problem with the bigger companies, but it might not be if it's a very
sure.
big company. maybe there are standard protocols in place, and maybe that information is more readily available anyway. Whereas a small company, maybe they're kind of playing around a little bit more. They're playing favorites.
I don't think they have that kind of money to play favorites.
What do you mean? Why not pay someone like nothing and then pay the other person a lot more?
Yeah, but I don't think in small companies they have that money to make those big ranges like that. I think in bigger companies they do have that those budgets to make those bigger
Oh,
salary
with a
ranges. And
smaller
so what I'm
budget,
saying
they take
is,
more money away from the one person though,
yeah, but I don't
and the other one.
again, we don't have any numbers on it,
Yeah.
but this is what my opinion here. And so I think when we look at these bigger companies, and I just saw a stat, you know, for example, I think in Japan, for every $1 the employee makes, the CEO is like making 17 times that much,
Okay.
right?
Much higher in the U.S.
In the US, it's on average it's 300
Right.
times that
Right.
much. And then far extremes like Amazon, it's 6,000 times that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think
Not talking about though the range between the employee and the CEO.
no, but
Like
I'm
in the
saying
same
that
position, right? Like everyone who works that same job.
I'm saying that to say there's money. The
Mm-hmm.
companies have money in there to manipulate these pay ranges, to have these big gaps. They
Yeah.
have that type of flexibility there. So if employees are seeing this and saying, "Hey, this is not really fair. I've been here X number of years and that person just got here and they're making more," and they start jumping ship and turnover starts increasing,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not really concerned with the company because they've already been playing with the employees. Like if you're doing the employees right, it's a different thing. They're not
So
going to
okay.
jump ship.
So you think that this is a measure to actually make the companies start treating their employees better, right? Because
Sure.
they don't want people to jump ship as much, and so
Right.
they're not going to have these big salary discrepancies anymore.
As I think it's I don't know if they're not going to do it. I think they'll
They'll do
probably
it less.
find different ways to go
Yeah,
around it to maintain those big gaps.
sure. And that's what I was
But
going to ask you next.
right. Yeah, they're going to find some kind of way. I mean, this is what they do, right? So, um, if the salary they increase the salary, maybe they're going to drop some benefits. You know what I mean? Um,
Okay. Well,
but
this does though require them to take all that into account. So we can
right.
pull up the language of the bill here because I took a look at it before we went on the air. It
So
isn't
the
just
thing
a
with
matter of the salary. It says salary or any non-salary or non-wage compensation. So they want all that to be taken into account when disclosing
sure,
this.
right, and I think all of that is necessary for them to know. So what? So let's think it through, right? If company starts doing that, employees are recognizing it. A lot of their employees that are a couple of years in start jumping ship, and they have to hire someone new. First of all, now they're going to have to compete in the marketplace, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to have to offer more potentially to get new employees in the door, or they're going to keep their offer at the same level. New employees are going to come in, and they're not going to stay very long because it's stagnant, right? So the company is going to have to make some kind of an adjustment.
Right.
So, I mean, I do understand, companies, they have the jobs and it's, they drives the economy to some extent, and all that. But, you got to also remember you're talking to someone who was a former national vice block leader for a union, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at the employee side of
Sure.
things.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, so I think it's a good thing. Oops.
Okay.
I think companies will have to be forced to adjust in some way. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in a positive way.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to be in a positive way. Um, they may start, oh, we got to increase wages. Okay, well, we're not going to provide vision anymore. But again, that could make them less attractive and make it more difficult for them to find employees. So
Right.
it's still, I think the transparency is a good thing.
Yeah, I think overall transparency tends to be a good thing, right? You want to have more transparency as opposed to
Right.
less in general, right? With whatever you're talking about. So, I think that's good. But you just mentioned maybe they would try to find a way to get around it. And that's what I was going to
Absolutely.
ask you. So, looking at how this legislation is worded, and by the way, shout out to Councilmember Selena Brooks Powers, local council member who is sponsoring this. And she has an op ed in City and State talking about why this is needed. So, I want to
What
give her
up?
further credit for that. Yeah, we go back a long ways. Um, if you look at the wording of the legislation, and maybe I shouldn't be doing this because maybe I'm doing a service to people who are trying to exploit this, but this is what we do on Nuance. We try to look at things from all angles, right?
This is what we do on Nuance, is try to help people exploit things.
No, but we look at things from all angles, right? We look at the good and the
Right.
bad, and maybe where the weaknesses are, or you know, and to be fair, that it's a way also to strengthen legislation, right? If we can identify ways it might be weak, that could be identifying a patch that needs to be made. So, from my glance of this, right, my first read of this, it is speaking of employees in a given position. Current job position is what it says. Compensation for an employee's current job position. So it uses the word position. Can they get around it by changing names of job descriptions? So everyone who works on a certain salary, right, will be titled the same. But if you want to have a tier system, instead of calling them all whatever, right, cashiers, sandwich technicians, and some whatever title they give them, right?
Right.
You have different titles for different tiers, right? And so you're saying like this is like one step up. This is a supervisor. This is someone else, so that when the employee goes and requests the salary range of everyone in that job position, it will always show the same salary because
Right.
now you're just creating a lot of different names of positions as a way to pay people different amounts of money. You know what I mean?
Or there'll be tighter tiers, right?
Yeah.
Tighter ranges, right? So it
Right.
doesn't seem like it's a big difference. So it could be
Right.
like you said, like sandwich technician one, sandwich technician
Yeah.
two, sandwich technician three.
Right. Or like, yeah, intermediate sandwich technician, master sandwich technician. I don't know. You know, yeah,
Right.
like you're now what do you call that? Tenured as a sandwich technician. Yeah, I don't know. But like
Right.
have yeah, literally have different names. And like you said, you can even put like different letters and numbers at the end of them just to create a
Yeah.
different job position and then say everyone who has that job position makes the same amount of money. I mean,
Right.
if they really wanted to get around it, they can have every single employee technically have a different job title and just say
Yeah, I think that
every Jay Carter
they
who works in
could.
my position makes the same amount of money. You know,
They could do that, but I think that
that would be too obvious, right? Trying to exploit the
not
law.
only be obvious, it would be
Yeah.
very, depending on how many employees you have, that would just be so tedious to do. But
Why? Why is it tedious to just have a different job title?
for everyone,
Yeah.
the paperwork on it,
I don't think it makes a difference. You think
but
like
I'm sure,
creating work classifications in the system or something? I don't think it really matters.
yeah, you'd have to for each employee, depending on, I mean, it depends on how many employees, right? What if you got like 300 employees? Like there's a different
Yeah.
classification for each one specifically,
Well, no, okay. Everyone who makes a different amount of money, at least.
which would probably be most people, because depending on,
It could
let's
be a
say you
minimum
have
wage.
a,
What if everyone on the minimum wage scale, they have a regular job title, entry level, whatever?
yeah, well, then you wouldn't then everyone would have the same wage, so then they
If
wouldn't
you
have to
make
make up
minimum
the different
wage, but then
ones.
if you have people paying different amounts, you have different titles,
Right.
different people, or different
And
levels.
the thing is, there's going to be. So everyone comes into the company at a different time. And let's say in
Mhm.
general, there's a 2% increase yearly or something like that. So
Right.
everyone's increase is going to be slightly different because they came in at a different time. So then they would be
Sure.
forced to, in that scenario, they'd be forced to create, or at least paperwork wise,
Yeah.
different job titles for each one.
You think that
And
really creates a lot more paperwork though, changing the job title?
I think it could.
Really? No.
Yeah. I mean, it's you got to create a new database for it and all that stuff. I mean, it just
Put it
would
in
be
your
tedious.
database. What, you have to have a different database for every job title? Just
Not
just
database, like
entry.
category, a
Okay.
category, and then an entry, and then.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think they're going to definitely try to get around it or
Right.
try to do something to prevent them from seeing how how unfairly they're treated. But I'm not sure. There's a question here. We got Christina in the chat said, "Isn't that already the law in NYC?"
Okay, no, so that's a really good question. The law, and this is a recent update to the law, right? The law now requires employers to post job salary ranges of a job when people are applying for a job. It
Right.
doesn't require employers to provide the ranges of everyone already working in a job when you have the job already.
Right. Right. So I guess the only way for them to know now, currently, is if you're in that position, if you
And
watch the job offerings that your company is
if they're
posting, you see the
hiring, yeah, if they're
range.
hiring new people to work in your same position, then they have to post the job range. But they have to post the job range of what they're looking to pay, right? And they
Right.
could say, depending on your experience, whatever, but we'll say, it'll say from this amount to this amount. This is the range that we're looking to pay somebody. But that doesn't necessarily mean it covers the range of everyone who's working there now. I mean, it should. You would hope it
Right.
would
But
be in that
imagine
ballpark, but it doesn't need to be necessarily.
imagine you're working there and you're making, let's say you're making
Yeah.
50,000 a year, and then you see the job posting for your position, and it's the pay range is like 55,000 to 75,000. It's like, wait a minute, I'm only making 50. Like, why are
Right.
you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So,
So,
like we said, more transparency.
yeah.
Now, part of what this seeks to rectify is the discrepancy that's found, and these are studies that are done, right, where they compare salaries of people of different groups. You just talked about how they ask you for your, sex and gender and ethnicity and that kind of stuff on job applications. Well, one of the reasons that's an issue, right, is because studies show that people do get paid different amounts depending on which identity group they belong to on
Sure.
average. And so the study cited here in this op-ed by Councilmember Powers says Black women make 63 cents for every dollar earned by white non-Hispanic men, adding up to a loss in wages of over $1 million over a 40-year career. So that means that over a 40-year career in the workplace, a Black woman is expected to make over $1 million less than her
Hmm.
white male counterparts.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one of
And
the things that this is seeking to address, right? More transparency, so that if you work
sure.
in there, you can see the ranges of what other people are being paid.
Sure. Absolutely. I think it's a good thing. I don't think there's I think it's something we should be doing. Um, a lot of people encourage employees to be open about what they make with their coworkers so that there is that transparency as well. Yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Quote here, this is a nice way to end off the article for Sylvania Brooks Powers. She says, for every woman who is quietly suspected she's earning less than the man at the next desk, for every worker who has been told, we don't talk about salaries here, and for
Right.
every family whose financial security has been undermined by secrecy, this bill is for
Mhm.
you. There
I'm
you go.
with it. I support it.
All right, so let's see if the people out
We ought to comment in there too. Jamie said, I fully support this.
there you go. So let's see what the people in podcast land think. I know I There you go. Got the question of the week ready. Okay. So the poll question of the week is, should employers be required to disclose the salary ranges to an employee for their position? Can you think of any potential drawbacks to that? Any reasons why we wouldn't want to do this?
Um, there could be potential animosity
Mm.
among employees. Say someone that's been there for several years and then someone new came in and now they're upset because they're getting paid more.
Imagine,
Uh,
yeah, I was just thinking because my first instinct was, well, it doesn't give you names, but that could make it even worse because you know, let's say you request the ranges and it's like from 50,000 to a million or something stupid, right? And then everyone's like looking around like, wait a minute, we're all making 50,000. Who's the $1 million jerk, right? And
right.
then people start
And
gossiping and forming these different alliances, and you might have more backstabbing going on, like trying to expose the guy who's making all the money.
people will start asking questions of each other. Well, how much are you getting paid? What's your salary? This
Or
and
if
that.
not directly, they'll start like hinting at it, right? Like someone mentions going on vacation with their family. You can afford that? Okay.
Right.
Start
You
trying to put
know,
clues together.
yeah. Everyone's driving a Honda Civic and then like,
Right,
Frank over there has got like a Bentley.
right. You know what's funny? Somebody actually, I think this might happen more than once to me. So when people hit me up as an attorney to help them with their cases, right? Sometimes they'll try to say that someone is corrupt in an organization, or something like that, right? Like, the co-op president over here, I think they're taking the money of the co-op or something, right? And you're like, okay, well, what evidence do you have of that? Sometimes they'll show me the car that they're driving, right? It'll be like a picture of them getting out their Mercedes or something like that. I'm like, well,
Right.
I need a little bit more than they drive a Mercedes to be able to prove that they're corrupt and they're stealing money, but they'll try to use that as proof.
Yeah, sure, sure. So
So,
I think it can be an indicator that you're getting money from somewhere,
right.
especially if the either that or you could be insanely irresponsible.
Yeah.
If you're
Can't
if
pay your
you're
rent.
making
You got a car note.
50,000 a year and you got a Lamborghini or something
Right.
like
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember, for example, um a guy in one of my buildings. It was in New York when I was living in New York. He had a Mercedes.
Hmm.
Um, the guy in the building I was living, he had a Mercedes, but he was chronically behind on his rent,
That's a common trope,
and he
right?
got
Uh,
and he got kicked out because
yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Sell the car? Did he own the car?
first of all, in that building in Valley Stream, parking there was no parking in the buildings. It means every night you're fighting for a place to park, which is
Where did he
already a
park
pain
it?
in the
Because you
butt.
couldn't park it on the street overnight, right?
Right.
Where did he park it?
They had to everybody in the building who had cars had to find somewhere every night to move to. So they would either go to empty businesses parking lots and try to move
It's
before
crazy.
like 5 a.m.
Right.
or stuff like that. But then like if your car is so expensive that you're not able to make your rent,
Hmm.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Did he own the car? Could he just sell the car?
And I think he was still
Good
making
money.
payments on it. So it was leasing or loan or whatever it was.
Hey, people make decisions. So, all right, that was the poll we put out. We want to see what the people think. We had a poll from last week in
Yes.
October.
We did have a poll from last week and seemed to get quite a bit of interest, actually.
Okay. What was the question?
So the question was, do you agree with the executive order aimed at flag burning? So this was based off of what we talked about the Trump administration's executive order, where they were trying to make it sound like they were making flag burning illegal. But we know that they can't do that because the Supreme Court already ruled on this, saying that it is legal. But the language in the bill, in the executive order, was kind of more, it was a word salad, but then there was like basically exploiting loopholes. So
Yeah.
saying that, um, you know, basically they're not gonna, if you burn a flag, it's not that they're gonna come after you for burning the flag. It's that maybe you've just violated a fire ordinance in that city for burning something in a public place. They're
Hmm.
directing, the administration is directing the applicable agencies to seek the maximum penalty for that violation. And so kind of a loophole in a sense. He's still punishing you for the flag, but it's not really crossing over a constitutional challenge.
I disagree with that last thing you said, though, because it is directing greater enforcement or greater
Sure.
priority of enforcement for people who commit other offenses. Okay, so we agree that there are other offenses that it was not unconstitutional to go after people for committing other offenses. The part that makes it unconstitutional, in my opinion, is that they're prioritizing enforcement of these other offenses based on whether you did flag burning or not, which was
Right.
supposed to be protected, right? Doesn't mean that you agree with flag burning to oppose it, but it just means that the Supreme Court said that that was part of protected First Amendment speech. And so if that is protected speech, how can you punish people more for engaging in that?
Well, and I think this is the par for the course for this administration. I think that what it does is it makes a possible court case arguable.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was flag burning outright, there's no court case there because the Supreme Court's already ruled on it. Here, they're trying to make some wiggle room. They're
Yeah.
trying to make
Yeah.
a somewhat plausible argument that can be debated so it can get in the court.
Right.
And that's what they want. I think, and ultimately, I think in a lot of these, they want these things to go to the Supreme Court so that they could get
Yeah.
complete overturns with this conservative majority.
If you read the executive order, it kind of makes a legal argument of sorts in the order, which is weird, right? You would think,
Right.
why would they do that? Why wouldn't the order just say what we're ordering, right? But it's like they're being very defensive in the order. They're saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, hold on a second. We know you said this was allowed by the Constitution, but there may be some room to play with here. Certain things aren't
Right.
always protected, and you said there might be some exceptions." Like they're actually kind of like raising constitutional arguments in
Right.
actual order.
Right. So I think ultimately part of it is, there's a couple of things. It's a propaganda play. They want to make it look like, oh yeah, he's done this big movement against flag burning. We're gonna do this, even though I think a lot of people
Right.
understand that it really doesn't, it really can't affect flag burning as a rule. But if someone burns the flag and they get charged with the maximum penalty for some other violation, they're going to take it to court. And I think that's what they want. They're going to be like, I've been unfairly treated for something that's First Amendment protected. And the only reason I'm getting this treatment is because of this executive order. And so, in a way, it is messing with my free speech.
Didn't you send me a message that that had already happened?
I believe so. Someone got arrested.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Um,
was actually trying to pull up a comment here.
it was right after, it was actually, I sent it to you right after we had the
Right after the
show.
show. Yeah,
I saw the article. I was like,
it
wait a
didn't
minute.
take long at all. Um, Facebook is giving me a hard time right now. I was trying to pull up a comment that I saw saying that burning a flag is actually the way that you're supposed to dispose of it. So this is all kind
Yeah.
of nonsense, according, you know.
Yeah. And I think actually, you know, people will make the case like, again, burning flags how I think how you're supposed to dispose of it, but also like, you know, wearing it as your Speedo is, that's desecration as well. Like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's controversial. I mean, we can get into a whole topic
Right.
on that, right? There are some who believe that wearing the flag as part of your clothing violates the flag code, but
Sure.
I believe that it's really just taking an actual flag and making it your attire, not having the design of the flag on your clothes.
Right.
That's the code.
So the poll question again was, do you agree with the executive order aimed at flag burning? And
Yeah.
so we got quite a number of voters here. Um, and it was like 170 voters here.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
90s, huh?
oh man, I was gonna guess. Okay, you said I was gonna guess 90 something. You said 96. Is that where you're going?
96% said
Ooh.
no.
I
They
wouldn't have
don't
guessed
agree.
96. I would have said maybe 92.
96% don't agree don't agree with the executive order aimed at flag burning, which you would hope that I would hope that that would be the case or even more because again, it's a First Amendment issue.
Yeah. But again, as we talked about last week, you can look at it from the legal side of things, right? The
Right.
constitutional side of things, or the political slash emotional side of things. And
Right.
clearly, what they're trying to do is prey on people's emotions here, right? So they,
Oh,
and,
sure.
and as a political tactic, force opponents into a corner where it sounds like they're the evil defenders of flag burning, right? When we're really trying to raise constitutional issues.
Right. Um, and it's also a more of a push, more of that nationalistic push,
Sure.
you know. Um, Someone commented here, if the USA can't cope with someone burning a flag, we've got bigger problems.
Mm.
Um, and actually another comment here did the uh cited, I guess what you were talking about. They said, but the US flag code says the flag should be destroyed, preferably by burning.
Mm.
Furthermore, the flag should never be used as wearing apparel, should never be used for advertising purposes in any manner whatsoever, should never have placed upon it, nor on any part of it, nor attached to any mark, insignia, letter, word, figure, design, picture, drawing of any nature.
Right.
So, um, they were making that thing. We already, as far as if you're talking about desecrating the image of the flag or whatever, like, we do it commonly. And let's be
Yeah.
honest,
Um,
the people who wear these clothing's large part would be these people that are MAGA type of people that are
I
wearing
don't
these.
think I don't think that's considered desecrating. I don't think wearing clothing with a flag design is the same as wearing the flag as clothing. Some people will
It
try to
could
make
be.
that argument, but I don't think that's really what it gets at. I think you can
Okay.
look at the history of it too, and you'll find that. But yeah, and I do think when they talk about flag burning, they're really not speaking of it. To be fair, in terms of disposing, I think they're talking about protest, really. But
Right.
you
And
know,
listen,
protesting is like the heart of what the First Amendment protects.
right. Right. And really that's what this is about. Part of it is also about quelling dissent, right?
Right.
Um, and let's also be clear that the flag code is not a binding
No,
law
not at all.
at all. So this is what should happen, or it's a custom to
Right.
do.
Right. And that's a good point to raise because you know we can go back and forth about what the flag code permits and doesn't permit. All right. We were discussing wearing the flag as a speedo, right? You can argue that's against the flag code, but to
Right,
ban that as you know as a matter of law or executive order would be a clear violation of your First Amendment rights.
right, right. So a couple of people keep bringing up that option, that idea of, people wearing it as clothing. Like this is, you know, you're upset about that, but someone wearing it across their dirty butt is okay with
Who
you.
does that though? Like, who actually takes an actual flag?
Not an actual flag. They're
That's
talking the
that's what
design.
it means though when they say you can't wear it. They don't mean you can't have clothing with it on. It really doesn't mean that. But okay, a lot of people will try to say that.
Yeah. Someone says, I do believe there are much more salient issues to address. Therefore, his executive order is nothing more than a bright, shiny object meant to distract our attention.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's part of that. Um, and someone else mentioned here, they said, you know what's sad? This is the second time in my life that this has become an issue. MAGA really is dragging us backwards.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Because when you think about that, first of all, I kind of was thinking about this last week. Are we seeing a rise in flag burning across the country to the point where this
No.
like where is this even coming from? Right. It does
No.
remind me of the Vietnam era, right, or some past time where people were protesting all over the place. I mean, obviously now you have protests like with what's going on in the colleges and stuff like that, but I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know that flag burning has been a prominent part of these demonstrations.
Not at all. I can't think of any of it. None of the BLM
Right.
protests or marches, none of the women's marches or the immigrant support marches. I don't see that. Now, usually you see people do that in cases like war protests or something, or at least in the history we've seen.
Yeah.
Has there been any news that you can recall, like for protesting against what's happening against Palestine or anything, or Ukraine or anything?
Protesting, yeah, but not
But
with
flag
flags.
burning.
Yeah, no, I don't remember seeing
Not
any.
a, at least not, I haven't seen any, and if there are, it's not a wide scale thing.
Right.
But this
Right.
is it's really a non-issue.
That
So,
has become an issue because of the executive order.
right. Someone said better the flag than the Constitution. And
Right.
I
Right.
definitely agree with that. And that's kind of what some of this is a fight against.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to talk about being patriotic, right? What's more patriotic than defending the Constitution?
Right.
So,
So,
all right. So we got some good results. I'm surprised by the 96%, but that maybe that is inspiring. Maybe that's a sign of
uh,
a reason to be optimistic. I don't know.
someone said, very, very sarcastically, I assume, I would be okay with an executive order ban on flag humping. Also, double the fine if the flag humper is a Bible thumper.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
because of that one video you saw of him like groping the flag. You saw that one?
All right, right, right. I think, let's see. There are two more comments here that I wanted to
Okay.
highlight. One I really like. He said, seems like the free speech absolutists are the most suppressive of free speech.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I see what they're saying, but can you really be described as a free speech absolutist if you don't believe in free speech in all circumstances?
Say that one more time. You're kind of
Could you
cut
really
out.
be? I understand where they're coming from with that, but could you really be described as a free speech absolutist if you don't support free speech in all circumstances.
Right. But they tend to, well,
I think what
I
they're
think it's a
saying,
little semantic, but right.
yeah.
So for example, Elon Musk claims that he's a free speech absolutist.
So okay, right.
However, um, when you know, and I know it's not exactly a free speech as Constitution's current concerned, but the way that he presents it is people being able to say things that they want to say. And that was
Hmm.
how when he took over Twitter, he let people come back onto the platform that had been saying these crazy things, which again wouldn't have been a free speech evaluation. It's more of a terms of service
Yes,
evaluation.
exactly, and that's
But
the point I was going to make as well, right? When they say
right,
free
but
speech
his
absolute,
point
yes,
was that this is free
they
speech,
right, they
and so
are calling themselves that, but they're not really supporting free speech in the constitutional sense.
right,
Yeah,
right. And I think a lot of people don't, and we've said this a million times, a lot of people don't understand what free speech, as far as the constitutional sense,
yeah.
actually means and what it applies to.
Right.
Um, but in his case, for example, he claims he's this champion of free speech, absolutism, and there was a case, for example, someone criticized him on Twitter, and he went and canceled their Tesla order, right?
Cancel the order. That's funny.
Right. And I think it's been cases where employees have said something and there's been a backlash on it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not really a free speech absolutist. You just
Right.
want to say some nasty things.
Right. Right. It only applies to your speech, not other people's speech.
Yeah. Um, I think and I think we can end off of this one. So this
Mhm.
person says, I don't like flag burning. To me, it shows contempt for the whole country rather than any particular part of it.
Mm.
However, he's like, all things considered, I still rather like my country. However, I would ignore flag burning rather than prosecute it on account of the Streisand effect, where visible outrage at an act attracts attention to it, makes it even more visible, and ultimately makes it more popular than it would have been if there had been zero attention paid to
Interesting.
it. What do you think about that?
So the Streisand effect, if I'm recalling that correctly, was that when her house was posted on the internet and she made a big deal of it, saying, I want that picture taken down. And it basically created the opposite effect that she wanted because it just led to more people seeing it and sharing it and that kind of thing.
I'm not clear on the particulars of
I
that,
think
but
that's what that refers
that's
to.
kind of the idea.
Yeah. And I generally agree with that, right? That's why I was questioning whether this was even a big issue in the first place.
Mm,
Um, if the example that I use sometimes, let's say Coca-Cola is the biggest soda company there is, right? If some local startup company, and I won't even say RC Cola, maybe something even smaller I don't even know of, right? If they're attacking Coca-Cola, does Coca-Cola want to waste its time responding to that and giving this local company a bigger platform than it warrants, right? I mean, sometimes you might just want to ignore the small stuff and let it go away instead of
right,
kind of fanning the flames.
right. Yeah, absolutely. So,
By the way, that,
yeah,
that was a good pun, right? Fanning the flames.
fan in the flames. Yeah, and you know what? Since I'll be honest, sometimes RC Cola tastes better than Coke and Pepsi
I
to
haven't
me.
had RC Cola, I don't think, since I was maybe a child. I don't know.
I think RC Cola is a
You have
little
that in Japan? It's
underrated
a
in
big
the
thing in
Coke.
Japan?
No,
Okay.
not at all. I think it's kind of underrated in the Cola Wars. Just saying.
If I see it in the store, I'll buy it. I don't even know if I've seen it in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's a little underrated in those areas.
All right. Well, maybe we'll do an RC Cola taste test on here in the future. Before we wrap up, I did want to give an update on a legal case that we had discussed here on Nuance. And there really isn't much to go into here, right? But the decision came down today, right? Because we said it was under appeal. And this was the case where an objector, right? Someone seeking to knock a candidate off the ballot for office, signed the objection forms with their nickname instead of their legal full name. And we discussed the pros and cons of whether they should be required to use their full name, right? One of the arguments raised here was that they should have been required, that the objection should not have counted because they use a nickname instead of their real name, right? And we said, well, the law is kind of established here in New York that candidates can use common nicknames. We had a whole discussion about that, right? That could help certain candidates and hurt others depending on their background, right? But putting that aside, the law really wasn't tested when it came to candidates. I mean, when it came to objectors to candidates using their nicknames, right? And at the lower court level, they said it was fine, but they only cited case law concerning candidates who use their nicknames, not the objectors. So this got appealed. The appeal was kind of dismissive of the whole argument. It didn't really do an analysis on it. It just kind of brushed it off. And it said this objector, right, his name is Lenny Mark, had standing to object to the petition as he resides in and is registered to vote within the council district. The remaining contentions are without merit. So that's it. It didn't get into the whole thing of the differences between the objector and the candidates using their nicknames and what should be allowed and what's not. It didn't even really mention nicknames in this appellate decision. It just said, listen, the guy is a registered voter. He's in a district. Let him live. You know what I mean? And they let him live.
Yeah. I think it's it's nitpicking to some degree. I mean, of course there could be some situations like we've outlined before where it could matter,
Yeah.
but I
But I
think we just
thought last time you
feel
were
it
kind
through.
of you seemed like you were kind of leaning more on the side of the objector should have to use their full name.
If I would say that again,
Last time when we had the discussion, I thought you were kind of leaning on the side that said the objector should have to use their full name and not hide.
objectors, yeah,
Yeah. Well, the court said here basically it doesn't matter. the person
I
used a
think
nickname and said that was fine.
yeah, I guess it's I guess my point was so that they could be identifiable.
Yeah.
And a nickname, I think, yeah, I mean, thinking about it. We're not talking an alias. We're talking about a nickname that they use. I think part of our discussion we brought up potentially using these other fake
Mm-hmm.
alias-like nicknames that they're
Sure.
not really used, they're not known by.
Right.
That I think
Right.
they should be
But
forced
that
to
I
change.
think would matter more in the context of a candidate than an objector, right? Because you're trying to trick the electorate now potentially, or maybe supporters of a different candidate, or you're trying to manipulate the ballot in some way. This is different, right? Because the objector's name never appears on the ballot. So
Yeah, but they're also trying to manipulate the ballot. So
by changing their name, how would that matter?
no, by making these objections to try to get
Well,
people
yeah,
kicked off the ballot.
sure, but how does it matter whether the guy's Lenny or Leonard in that sense?
It doesn't. It
Yeah.
doesn't. But if that's what I'm saying. If they were using, in the cases of using like an alias type of thing, because I
Mm-hmm.
believe in that conversation we brought up, what if they decided they were, and we made up some other name, that's not what they're known by, just to be the objector. I think I don't think that should be allowed.
Mm.
Like if you're Leonard, if you're known as Lenny, your name's
Yeah.
Leonard, or you are actually didn't even matter if your name's Leonard. If you're known as Lenny
Yeah.
and that's your common name that people know you by, then yeah, it should be okay.
Because you're saying you're not hiding your identity in any way.
Right.
You're
I
Lenny.
don't I don't
Knows you're
think
Lenny.
that I don't think people should be allowed to hide their identity, be anonymous objectors,
Right. Right. I see.
especially when you're trying to get people kicked off the ballot
Yeah.
and stop them from running for office or preventing the voters from being able to vote for a candidate.
Right.
So I think there should be a paper trail there, an identifiable one. Like,
Okay.
why are you doing this?
So
Who are you?
here's the one piece. I mean, so I guess that's interesting, even though the court didn't really do an analysis of that. But here's, I think, the piece that may be more useful going forward in election law. Um, this relates to a change in the way that the election law was written a couple of years ago, which I won't get into. But the contention that was made in this case was that when you are an objector and you're trying to knock a candidate off the ballot, you have to serve your objections on every candidate who appeared on that petition, right? So you know how sometimes when people run for office, they'll have multiple people on the same petition for different seats,
Right.
right? It'd be like, they call it an omnibus petition. You'll see that a
Right.
lot. So they were trying to say, if you're going after, let's say, a city council candidate on that petition, you not only have to serve your objections on the city council candidate, but you have to serve them on every single candidate named on that petition, whether they're running for mayor or county committee, whatever
Sure.
it is. And I think that's based on the way the election law was written. That said you have to serve the objections and all the candidates on the petition. But this court now interpreted that to mean not everyone on a petition necessarily, but just the ones that you're challenging.
I think I can see two scenarios
Mm-hmm.
that would make sense. So I can see it making sense for having to include everyone because everyone's on those ballots. So if you're saying, I mean, not ballots, everyone's on those petitions. So if you're saying this candidate's petitions are invalid, well, then that means everyone on there is probably invalid.
No, no, but not well, not necessarily.
Right.
Maybe,
And I was gonna say,
maybe,
here's the other argument that could
yeah,
say, well, no, maybe those five candidates are in that the different those signatures are for
right,
people in those districts, but
right,
one of the signatures might not be for a person that's in the district. And so there's
right.
a argument. So like I said, I could see two reasonings
Yeah,
or how people might approach the argument.
yeah.
So yeah.
Right. Like if you're running for mayor, you need a lot more signatures and they can come from anywhere in the city, right? So
Right.
you might have a city council candidate in a certain area with your name on it. You're running for mayor, but
Right.
you've got multiple petitions in different districts around the city, with your name on it as mayor and then a local candidate for city council, right? And everyone's
Right.
electing from all over the place. And then all your signatures get added up to your mayoral petition, but the city
Right.
council ones are going to be, different depending on the district. And so,
Right.
yeah, in this case,
So-
they're going after the city council candidate. It didn't affect the mayoral candidate at all, right?
Right.
The argument was, because they try to get these cases dismissed on any grounds that they can. So they
Right.
made the argument that, oh, these objections can't stand because you didn't send them to the guy running for mayor.
Right. Yeah, and I think that that makes sense. I mean, like if you're on the petition with
Mm-hmm.
the guy, like you said, running for mayor and you're running for city council in Queens, those signatures from people in the Bronx are shouldn't count towards you. You can't just kind of like slip by with those petition numbers. Like you have to count only those in your district.
So you're saying it makes sense that they don't serve the guy running for mayor?
Right.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
different. Yeah, like if you're challenging a city council race,
Yeah.
it's a much different scenario than challenging someone for mayor or a different.
Right.
And also, it just becomes too cumbersome, right? Like as an election attorney preparing this, if there's an omnibus petition with like 20 candidates on it, and now you have a very limited amount of days, right, to put these objections together. Let's say you've got 150 pages worth of objections to this one candidate that you're challenging. You're telling me that you're going to make 20 copies of these 150 pages and get them out to all these 20 different candidates who really have nothing to do with your challenge, right? That's
Yeah,
putting
just
way
go to
too much
Kinko's.
pressure.
Just go to Kinko's and drop it in the mail. I think I
It's a
really
bigger expense,
question.
and also sometimes they don't allow you to serve objections by mail. In a court case, for example, that was a
Right.
little bit of a different story, but sometimes the judges want you to hand deliver the objections or to bring them to their
Right.
house. They got to go to 20 different people's house, try to find 20 different people that have nothing to do with your case, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's completely off topic, but I think I'm not sure I'm on board with the idea of allowing these omnibus petitions. Like each candidate should have their own
It's
petition.
interesting. The thing is this, I mean, it is a different topic. We can have a whole show on that because number one, the window is very limited, right? The number of days you have to collect these signatures. And you're now trying to get voters to sign multiple petitions, right? Let's say there are, I don't know, 12 seats you're trying to fill in a particular area. You've got to get the same or voters to sign for 12 different people. I mean, could you imagine standing out there and saying, sign this, now sign this, now sign this, now sign this, now sign it? People aren't going to do it. They're going to walk away after a certain point. And now
Sure.
you're severely limiting the amount of signatures that you can get in that short time.
Sure. I don't think I've seen the signature numbers don't the requirements don't seem to be particularly insurmountable though. They seem to be
Uh,
quite small. And from what I
they
remember, I
take
don't know
off the
how
ballot all the time. Maybe I make a living off
that,
of it.
that's true. That's true. Um, but like I said, I can see that point. Like, imagine if you're at home and it's election season and 12 different campaigns come to
Yeah.
your door asking for a signature. At some point, you can be like, you know what?
Or
I'm
right,
shooting the next
right.
person
Or
that
if
comes
you're
to the
out there
door.
trying to collect signatures, let's say you're standing by the supermarket, something like that, right? And now
Right.
it's like 15 other people standing next to you trying to get the same people to sign it. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. Hey, while you're signing that, hey,
right, right.
hey.
And how does that burden the voter? What if the voter's intention
Sure.
is for all these people to be on the ballot, right? Why would you burden them by making them sign their name 20 times when they could sign it once to say, I agree that these people that I'm signing for should be on the ballot? I think where it becomes problematic is a lot of times the
It's
person
counting.
Well, yes, but also the person petitioning doesn't always show the voter everyone who's on that petition for for whatever reason, right? Let's say they got their own candidate that they're trying to get signatures for. Sometimes I'm just
Right.
like, hey, can you sign for my candidate here? And the
That
voter
shouldn't
doesn't
be allowed.
realize it's not allowed. But I mean, sometimes it's done more deliberately than others, right? I mean, like if they're
Right.
folding over the name so that you can't see it, that's really egregious. But
Right.
sometimes they're not trying to hide it necessarily. They've got the whole sheet out, but they're not walking the voter through every single name, right? They're not like sign
Right.
my candidate, sign my petition for Mike Scala and for Jay Carter and for. You know what I mean? They're just like, can you sign for my candidate here or whatever? Like they're just trying to use as few words as possible to get the signature, and so the
Right.
voter doesn't realize all the people that they're signing for.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean I can see that where it inconveniences the voter, but then at the same time, I think it raises questions about the count too, right? Because then like we just pointed out, those candidates that are on there could be from different areas, and that signature would have to be parsed somehow. You know,
Well, well, who's going to parse it? The challengers have to parse it when they're objecting.
yeah, that's kind of crazy. Like, all right, I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
put my thing on with the mayor. The mayor
Yeah.
got like 20,000 signatures. I need 1,000. You got to go through here and find all those to make sure that, you know, I did
Well,
it right.
no. Oh, you're talking about from the campaign's perspective.
Yeah.
So from the
Like, you
campaign,
want to object to it? You got to go through 20,000 signatures now to
well,
find
well, no,
to make
because
sure I got 1,000.
who are you objecting to, the mayor's or the city council candidate in that scenario?
I'm
Candidate.
the candidate, the city council one.
Yeah, so you wouldn't pull up the mayor's petitions from the Bronx if you're going after a candidate in Queens. You would go after the ones that are for that candidate with that city council candidate's name on it, which would be
But if they're all on the same sheet, how do you know? How do you know that? If this person signs on
yeah.
this sheet, how do you know that that person is a signature for the mayor or in the that accounts toward the mayor and doesn't
It, count,
count
it
for
counts
the city council person?
it counts towards all the candidates on that sheet, but that's what I'm saying. So if you're running for a city council in Queens and you have the mayor's name on your petition as well, no one's going to count the petition sheets that have the mayor's name and some other candidate from another borough for yours. They're going to look at the sheets that have your name on them on the top.
Right.
And so those are all the ones that you're looking at. If you're going to challenge that city council candidate, or if you are the city council campaign, you're not looking at the mayor's sheets from other boroughs or other candidates. You're just looking at the ones that have your name on them.
Okay, so maybe I'm thinking differently of how the sheets look. You said
Yeah.
there's names of the same candidates on the sheet.
All right. So you're thinking like the mayor has like all the city council candidates from all over the city on them. But no, that's not
It's
how
like
it
one
works.
sheet that says these are the candidates. Do you sign to support them running for the
So
office?
the sheets are very localized. They're localized sheets.
So then the person signing has to sign multiple pages potentially.
No, no. Why would they have multiple pages? They're in an
Because
area. So if they sign in Howard Beach, Queens, they're signing for the candidates that are on that petition, and all the candidates on that
right.
petition sheet are going to be local candidates to that area,
Okay.
right? Including the mayor as well, because the mayor covers Howard Beach, it covers all, it goes
Gotcha,
all the way
gotcha,
down
gotcha.
the line, right? So it's not
Gotcha,
like you're
gotcha.
signing for someone in Brooklyn, though. You'll be signing just for people who pertain to you.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. I was thinking it was a universal sheet that was being
Right,
used
right. No, no,
everywhere.
no, no, no. That's what I'm saying. There's like 1,000 different sheets that get printed out depending on
Right.
the area that they're going to be going to.
All right. Well, that makes a little
Yeah.
more sense.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So
So what's the bottom line here, sir?
I don't know. We had a pretty good discussion. We started off with talking about transparency, all right, how more transparency is a good thing. But then we kind of pivoted a little bit, and I think we touched on this idea that sometimes you don't want to have certain discussions if they're just adding flames to the fire, right? If certain things don't need to be said because you're just creating a bigger story for something that really didn't need to be a big story in the first place. So I'm not sure how that relates to transparency, but it seems like there may be a bit of a paradox there. I don't know.
I think I think probably the main point would be transparency though.
Right.
Like the first discussion and then even this discussion about the petitions, there's
Mhm.
a level of
Yes.
transparency that this
True.
is talking about here. right?
True.
Transparent who's making the objections,
Yep.
transparent on who's signing these petitions or what candidate these petitions are for, or even if these are valid signatures. I think all of it comes down to transparency. I'm not sure where the other point fits in. There's probably some way in there, but transparency jumps out to
Yeah. Yeah. Because I was thinking transparency in terms of like, calling more attention, shining a light, right? Showcasing something, right?
me.
More of
Right,
it. But then we were saying in some situations, maybe we don't want to call attention to certain things if it's being done, in a manipulative way, or if it's
right,
serving a certain agenda that, you don't need to be showcasing, right? And
right.
so, I
And
mean,
that, that's honestly not to jump off topic completely, but
yeah.
it's kind of a callback to us covering that or not covering, but looking at some of these surrounded episodes. People are now asking the question, are these hurting more than they're
Mhm.
helping
Mhm.
because they're platforming some of these views that are ridiculous.
Right, right, right.
So
So I don't know. I guess we can put it in two different buckets, right? More transparency is good, but also, I guess, choosing your battles and, right, being careful what you're showcasing.
I'm with that. Sounds
So,
good to me. And in 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 relation to that, I'm going to give a shout out to Governor Hochul
mm,
from that clip. I think I sent you the clip real quick, and it was just a clip of, and it seems to have taken place back in June, where she was testifying before Congress, and Marjorie Taylor Greene stated to her, "So you stated you're a proud registered Democrat, right?" And then Hochul quickly responded, "Yes. Is that illegal now too in your country?"
mm.
So I like that. So shout out to
Okay.
Hochul.
Yes,
Bring
as
the fire,
always.
bring the heat. So
Yes, just do it in a way that doesn't violate any other laws, is because we know that, they'll come after you.
sure.
So, all right. Thank you all for
That was
today.
I see what you did there.
All right.
The burning, the flag burning, the heat, the fire.
That's right.
Gotcha.
So get your voice taken care of. I know you got some lessons coming up
Yeah.
today. And hopefully by next week, you'll be all better. We can get into more heated discussion. As always, this is Nuance. Thank you all for checking us out, tuning in. You can find us wherever podcasts can be found, as well as on social media. We've got work to do, guys. Catch you next time.